right now we're packing up and we're going to put this fire out. Now we're right next to Walcott Inlet, so we're going to have to throw a bucket down there somehow, rope it up and put this thing out properly. One thing that I highly recommend on any kind of trip, adventure, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to camping, you want to have a decent ground sheet or a ground sheet. What I have noticed is on this trip here, Andrew, or Andy, he hasn't got his own ground sheet, and when he sets up his tent and when he packs it up, he will ask me if he can do it on my sheet before I pack it away. So this is the last thing I'm packing away, so do remember a ground sheet. This one here in particular is a Sea Gear one, and I've mentioned it in a lot of videos. It's the one I've paid for myself, so I'm not sponsored by these guys. But this is a seriously good sheet, quite expensive, but honestly, if you camp a fair bit, it's worth the money. And we're talking like in the $200+ mark here. But it's a good investment. But you can get a cheaper version. And this one, I think it's called a beach mat. I saw it on one of those Instagram adverts. But what I find is a bit too thin, so I double it over. But that is another good option. And this cost me $30. So there's a bit of a difference there. Obviously that one there is a kick-ass mat compared to this one. And this one here, I don't really like the colour either. Another bit of a thing you need to know about when it comes to rubbish. Make sure you squash all your cans. This here isn't quite good enough. You really need to flatten them all, because as you get further and further in your trip, your bag gets bigger and bigger. So condense everything you can. Even plastic bottles, what you can do, squash them down to nothing. This new water storage system I've got going on is actually working out really well for me. The only thing I don't like is I don't have taps on them. I have to pull them out and then put the tap on, which is a bit of a pain if I just want some water. So I've been using them like this and then tipping it out a little bit. A bit annoying at times. It's something I need to address. I need to find some kind of way I can easily get the water in and out of my containers. So I'll keep thinking about that one. But other than that, it's worked out great the way I've set all this up.
Being the end of the super tides, we knew that we'd struggle to launch the boat again, so we decided to start heading back out. But there were a lot of places we wanted to check out on the way out that we didn't check on the way in because we were in such a rush to get to Walcott Inlet. So our first stop is a bit of a water hole because it's stinking hot today, and we're hoping we can go for a bit of a swim. We have arrived at Calder River, not far from Walcott Inlet. Now this is still croc country for salties. However, it is pretty flat there, the water's really shallow, and we're at the rapids, so we're quite safe here. So we're going to have a bit of a soak and get lots of this mud and grit off us, which we've had for a couple of days now, especially since we ended up in that sloppy mess trying to get the boat up and get the vehicles out. So this was great.
freshen up after Walcott. And after all that mud yesterday, we're all covered in it. All my toes, toenails, feet, hands, all clean now. We're ready for a 40-kilometre journey to the next waterhole, which will be Calder Lagoon. Another croc potential area.
So we've been driving for probably about 3 days in this long grass, and we have been cleaning it out every now and then, but now, since we've gone to Walcott Inlet and then left again, there has been so much tall grass that's gotten in there. I decided to pull over and have a look. Everyone else got out and we all ended up cleaning our radiators for probably about a good 15-20 minutes. It's surprising how much is in there. So next time, lesson learned, high grass area, I'm going to bring some shade cloth and I'm going to cable tie it to the bull bar. Quick lunch stop before we reach Calder Lagoon, which isn't very far from here at all. It's just a nice spot with all the water and stuff around. So just to give you a bit of a demo of what we do, like we've been out here for quite a while, but as far as lunches go, I find that a lot of people will skip their lunch, but if you set up right and you bring the correct food, like wraps, because all our bread's all dried and been used in jaffles now, we tend to get wraps, and cheese usually lasts quite a while. Ham and stuff, when you buy that, you want to make sure that you got the longest expiry as possible and use it before it obviously expires. This one here is 19th of August, so I've got heaps of time. Or you can get real fancy, you get a pie warmer, like Torben's got. And what do you got there, chicken strips?
Sweet chili chicken strips.
Mmm.
Nice and crispy.
Now I'm jealous. So I'm just having ham and cheese with a lot of mayo.
And a lot of mayo.
Alright, yep, mayo. Shut up, Torben. In the nicest way possible.
I'm pretty short on this table.
Yeah, you are standing in the dip.
Yeah, I know.
I'm standing on a rock, so I'm alright. And I'm on an angle. Also helps to have a fridge like this just to grab things out. So you've probably heard me say this many times before. This is my road fridge. Beers are for camp, obviously. And then in here is my food fridge.
We have arrived at Calder Lagoon. I misread the piece of paper. I thought this was the campsite. It appears to not be. The campsite's another kilometre from here. But it looks like we'll get there in daylight. What do you reckon?
Well, I spoke too soon, didn't I?
Okay.
Torben went and got himself stuck. Now, we followed the track in there onto the green grass, but as we turned around, I think Torben turned a bit too sharp than the rest of us and started sinking. And now he's proper stuck.
So what we're doing here is Torben's gone down on the way out. This is where we thought it was dry. This is where we parked. I even drove down here, made sure it was alright first. So we're all down here, turned around to come out. We found a hole. It must have been a runoff underneath this grass. So yeah, probably a bit stupid on our part to drive down to here. But that's what happened. And we're probably going to get to camp in the dark now. Anyway, we have a max track here, and I put this tyre here because he's pulling me back from the bank. So now this should lift him up. It has worked in the past, and I believe it'll work again. The only difference for me is this time I'm using a tyre that doesn't have a groove in it. So all-terrain tyres are best for this kind of thing. I've got mud terrain, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, that didn't work. He just kept pulling my cruiser back. So now he's actually hooked up to a tree with a couple of extension straps. We were lucky enough to have a tree there.
This is the Calder River. So as I've already explained, we're at the Calder River. Now this campsite, we didn't even know was here. It's actually just behind Calder Lagoon. Now I believe there used to be a track coming in from the other side because there's evidence of it along the sandbank. But someone's made a new track through here because it's all tall grass. And you can tell people try to find it. We've gone down those tracks as well, they're all dead ends. But we are here now, and that's all that matters. Now this particular river, the Calder River, or Calder River, a bloke by the name of William Easton actually got taken by a croc while trying to swim this river. Not at this exact spot, probably about 40 or maybe 20 kilometres downstream. So it doesn't mean that this is safe at all. So what we are going to do is camp on the other side of this fire. There's not enough room for us all at the top, so some of us have opted to sleep down here. We know the risk, and we have taken precaution to sort of keep ourselves safe. Now, if no one else was going to camp down here, I wouldn't be down here. Between me and the river, I'll have my vehicle, we'll have a fire. What I'm going to do now is bake some bread. I'm going to do a damper, and I'll just give you a brief look at that. Now there will be a separate video on how to do dampers and bread, if I'm successful with the bread, that is. Dampers are pretty easy. Right behind me with the Calder River, we can just fetch any bucket of water and heat it up here and have a bath basically. We're not going to swim in there for obvious reasons, but hey, we got fresh water, fill the buckets up, have a nice warm shower. Right, we are going to make a damper. Now this will be similar to the Wongan Hills damper I've done in a previous adventure. 1 onion, a bit of cheese, shredded cheese, and half a can of Asahi, or 250 mils, and 3.5 cups of flour, self-raising flour. I don't have a bowl, so I'm going to use my bucket. I've cleaned my bucket with the river water, boiled it, ready to go, and we're going to do it in the camp oven.
So for my overseas viewers, a damper is basically another term for quick bread.
Doesn't matter if it froths up a bit, you're going to mix it anyway.
scratch the rest of the ingredients in.
Now we're in the bush. It doesn't matter if you spill a bit or pour it out.
If you're not into tinned meats or tinned sausages, bacon is a great alternative. Actually better.
Now you may need a little bit more liquid or a little bit more flour, but in this case I think it's going well. Now this is a brand new bucket. That's why it looks so clean. Here's our damper. And then it's good as gold. And I'll show you how many coals we put on top of it. But what you want is you want good coals on top of it for the whole entire half an hour.
This is a great and easy recipe. I recommend for anyone to try this, and mixing all the ingredients and getting it ready does not take long at all. Probably about 10 minutes in total.
Oh yeah. Cocktail sausages. Alright, where's my taste testers? There you go, John.
Thank you.
Now, put the spotlight on him. There we go. It's a bit hot still.
First light. Tastes good.
Let's get the real critic, the baker. There you go, Dad. Be honest.
That's not so bad.
There you go. If he likes it, must be good. Alright, so that was in for half an hour. Well, 35 minutes actually. Probably 5 minutes just too long. And another key thing you must do is when you pull it out, you got to let it rest because it's actually still baking on the inside. If you start cutting it straight away, it may be a bit gooey on the inside still.
And tonight's dinner was whipped up in the same camp oven. Chili con carne on corn chips. We forgot our sour cream, so we are using yogurt as a substitute. Cooking in the bush always requires a bit of improvisation, and you'll be surprised what new flavours you actually discover out there.
Alright, that's dinner tonight. Chili con carne. Let's dig into it. Well, alright, as you can see here, we've got some max tracks up. We're keeping the fire going all night.
Oh, we're pretty close to the lagoon.
Yeah, well, that's actually the river.
10 minutes.
I'd say 20. We're 20 metres away from the river, and there is a croc out that way, and there's another croc out here. We can see his eyes, and you can't really pick up anything with this. It's too far on the other side. But there are two crocs here. This guy over here is going from one end to the other, just constantly backwards and forwards. And this guy over here, he goes under, and I don't know where he goes after that. But there's definitely two out there. So, what we've done, it's a bit of a barricade because we're already set up. So we've got max tracks and we've got branches down for early warning. So paranoia kicked in a bit because the other boys up the top there have been getting stuck into us. Wayne's way over there with Sarah. So, better to be paranoid than naive. We'll see you in the morning.
It is the 10th day of our Kimberley adventure, and I gotta say, it doesn't feel like 10 days, it feels like a lot less. We have done so much, yet time has flown past. And we have been without major vehicle problems until now.
Oh, look at that bolt on the bottom there, mate. Keeper. There you got it.
We're unhitching the boat, and the reason for that, Nathan?
Yeah. We've cracked the rear bar.
Cracked on both sides, cracked at the receiver, on the top, on the gussets, on the sides. So it's cracked in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. What do you reckon's the cause, apart from obviously the track's been rough on all the gear?
Yeah, well, I bought this extension here to bring the trailer further away from the wheel carrier. And I think the leverage of the load is too far out. And it's just loading the bar up too much. Over the corrugations is shocking. And the track. Yeah.
So what we are going to do is Torben is now going to take the boat. His tray doesn't overhang his tow assembly as far as what yours does. So plus you got the wheels on the back, so you need the extra clearance. That's why you got the extension. So we're going to remove the extension, put this straight onto Torben's, and he has the updated tow assembly bar, which has 7 bolts as opposed to, what do we get, 4 on each side. So 8 bolts versus 14 bolts, and it's out. At least that'll get us out of here.
Problem solved. Torben is now a proud owner of a new boat. He's going to have to tow this all the way back to Broome now. But that's not the only problem we have. There's more.
Someone left their fridge running all night on this starter battery. But that's because your other battery's dead, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Probably dropped the cell or something. Now his car's been sitting in a workshop for nearly 2 months, maybe even longer than that actually. So the battery hasn't been used. And once that happens to certain types of batteries, they don't tend to live as long afterwards, unless you put them into like a storage mode, which I don't think it would have been done. So I think he's dropped a cell in that back battery, and now he's going to have to run the fridge off his main for the rest of his trip. There's no power on this thing.
These jump packs are great and handy to have, but they're not so reliable. We have all had a bad experience with a jump pack, cheap or expensive. You can't beat the old jumper cables. They are always going to work, and you're going to get a nice big charge from another vehicle. So with Torben not having towed a boat or a trailer through conditions like this and not being his own boat, he's taking it real easy, so things are taking a lot longer until he gets used to it. Nathan, on the other hand, is burden free, and yeah, he's enjoying not towing the trailer now. So this morning, sorting out two fairly decent problems out on the vehicles. Now we're about to experience another problem. Have a listen to this Jeep. There's something not quite right.
As the Jeep crossed the river, there's a lot of noise coming from the front end. Also, Brian noticed something on the previous crossing before that one, that something wasn't quite right. And it appears that a bracket that is welded to the diff housing has been sheared off somehow, probably from all the corrugations and whatnot. And that bracket holds the sway bar and the steering dampener. So at the moment, Yuha's underneath, ripping out the entire sway bar system, and he's going to rip out the steering dampener. So it just means that it's going to be a bit of a jerky wheel, and he's going to feel everything through it. But we can still get out of here, so that's the main thing.
There's the bracket that was at one stage welded to the diff, which houses your sway bar connection and your steering dampener.
Now, a lot of people out there have requested that Brian uses sway bar disconnects. Well, he doesn't have to worry about it anymore. And that's what it looks like with everything removed. And this is what actually got pulled out of the vehicle. So it's a fair bit of gear.
Oh my hat!